Hill, another episode of Chicago Hill. And, this episode is dedicated to Independence Day. So let me first start by saying, Meleika, don't feel bad, but let me just say, happy Independence Day to everyone, but especially you, Mark Peysakhovich, you white man, you.
On behalf of all white people everywhere, thank you, sir.
Yes. 4th of July. What do you all have planned for today?
Well, just family and fun.
Do white people celebrate differently, Mark?
I'm just going to the home of some other white people who are rich and have a pool, and we're gonna hang out there. So I don't know how much, it's funny because how much of it is celebration and how much of it is just observance. Two different concepts, right? Some people celebrate, others observe. Others don't really do anything, just hang out.
Well, what
That's
about
interesting.
you?
That's interesting. He says some observe and some celebrate.
What's observing different? What do you mean observe? And that is interesting, Meleika. What's the difference, Mark?
Well, for some people, it's a celebration, and for some other people, it's an observance of a holiday or a day. Different people have different views on it, obviously, and I don't want to get too deep into it yet, but, for some folks, Independence Day might be, the day that, they don't want to celebrate white America. I guess if you're a Native American from whom this country got taken, you're probably observing and understanding that the day is happening, but maybe it means something different to you because it's not your Independence Day, strictly speaking, for your people that got slaughtered and got their country taken away from them. So it's a different day, I assume, for different people, and I assume for you Black folks, it's more complex than it is for a lot of white folks who don't give it much thought and maybe just put out a flag and celebrate their, it's a day to celebrate victory and superiority, is it not? But victory over what? And
well, let's talk about that. So the Declaration of Independence, the freedom of the 13 North American colonies from Great Britain. The founding document of the United States explained that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. But in 1776, the newly independent nation, free from British control, still held hundreds of thousands of Black people in captivity, even on the day that this country declared its independence and the president wrote it enshrined in history. Still, Black people that helped fight for this country's independence were still held captive by the United States of America. Meleika.
Yeah, as a kid, we celebrated with my family, and too much didn't talk about what it really meant. It wasn't until I hit my teens that my uncles and aunts, we really started talking about the 4th of July. So I haven't been one to really celebrate. I guess I'm in the observe category. Just really thinking back, like what it was like back then when everyone was celebrating, the fireworks were going off, when that was signed, and so many were still enslaved. My people were still enslaved, and have Native American in my family as well. So, you know, what were we doing back then?
July 5th, 1852, the abolitionist Frederick Douglass gave a significant keynote address at an event in Rochester, New York, commemorating the signing of the Declaration of Independence. In his speech, Douglass acknowledged the founding fathers of America, the architects of the Declaration of Independence, as brave men, their commitment to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But he said, the 4th of July is a national holiday to be celebrated by this country, free from Britain. But Douglass, in his speech, also challenged the hypocrisy of Independence Day by asking, what to the slave is the 4th of July? He also states, what to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all the other days in the year that gross injustice and that cruelty in which he is the constant victim. Frederick Douglass.
I think it's great that we're now going to have Juneteenth every year, a couple of weeks before the 4th of July. In some ways, maybe Black people ought to see it as a warm up, as a day to teach about the 4th of July even, and discern the difference between celebration and observance, right? And so that day is so clearly about a period of years of life that was really stolen from Black people. It was stolen time when they didn't even know that they were supposed to be free. And now we come to this holiday, it's just complicated. You know, I'm glad that as adults we have this ability to nuance things, because nothing is, shall we say, yeah, I'm going to say it, nothing is black and white in this country.
Well,
That's right. That's right. I think we more so use it as a day just for family to get together, and we talk about things and eat and drink and yeah. So I think we just try to make the best of everything, just a day to pick where we can all come together.
well, I would say I agree with you, Meleika, but you know, also, Mark, I would say that it is great that America celebrates Juneteenth. You know, Juneteenth is, you know, one of those holidays now, federal holiday, and I don't think we can have Independence Day without Juneteenth. Believe it or not, I think this conversation is something that has some value when we talk about how can we celebrate Independence Day from Great Britain without recognizing the struggle of Black people in this country. Wow, we have to celebrate both. Let's go to a clip. Let's go to a clip where we're going to hear Black people talk about what the 4th of July means to them and what Juneteenth means. And we're going to also hear how white people see and think about the 4th of July. We have another clip that we're going to play shortly after that. And even we're going to hear Colin Powell talk about what he thinks of Independence Day as well.
You got white people, Black people, and then a white Black person. Good balance.
I would like to hear Clarence Thomas' point of view of the Independence Day.
You know what? I don't want to hear anything about Clarence Thomas's point of view. On this one, I'm actually with the mayor and the F-bomb.
Oh, yeah, but you know, I mean, but don't you expect, this is America. Clarence Thomas has a right to whatever he wants to say. I mean, we know that's why we can't elect people that will appoint people that think like him. That's what this country is all about. We're on Independence Day talking about freedom.
So many black people in America have always had an interesting view on 4th of July.
I don't necessarily look at it as my holiday.
There was no independence for African Americans.
I don't necessarily celebrate the 4th of July.
We were never free and or equal.
Independence Day commemorates the passage of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. It announced the freedom of the 13 North American colonies from Great Britain, but the newly independent nation still held Black people in captivity.
At one point, you're declaring your freedom, and at another point, you're enslaving people.
My people were going through a very traumatic time, and that the fight for freedom, liberty, and justice for Black people continued.
And I look at the fact that we were 3/5 of the Constitution of the United States. We were not considered whole.
On July 5th, 1852, abolitionist Frederick Douglass gave a speech at an event commemorating the signing of the Declaration of Independence. In part, he states, "This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn."
Our forefathers decided to really get independence and become a place for freedom. Now, when we look at it in real time and then in history, we show that our country and our practices have fallen short.
Some Americans do feel absolutely free. I don't think that is a feeling that African Americans necessarily feel. We're still fighting for those same freedoms that the 13 colonies fought for in 1776.
When I see our African American males being killed and law enforcement not being held responsible, yes, to me, that's a disconnect. Juneteenth and my family was more like the 4th of July. It's an opportunity for us to introduce those storytelling to our babies so they can understand the history of the African American community.
Juneteenth is a federal holiday celebrated on June 19th each year to commemorate the end of slavery in the U.S. On June 19th, 1865, Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas to announce that more than 250,000 enslaved Black people in the state were free by executive decree.
We do recognize the 4th of July, but we have more of a connection with Emancipation Proclamation.
I celebrated Juneteenth this year like I've never celebrated before. Juneteenth was special to me and all the people who died to get us this far.
That was the holiday that I knew was the true meaning of freedom for, my ancestors and my people. We can celebrate the 4th of July, but let's just be honest about what it is and what it isn't.
I always respected the flag. It is a symbol of justice. It is a symbol of constant social change and trying to do better.
When I see that American flag, I see it as a symbolic gesture of freedom, but that freedom is yet to be seen by some of us. But the dream still lives.
I like how they said, the flag is a symbol for constant change because it doesn't represent freedom, what it means to others in our country. So I think I have to, in my heart and my soul, I have to look at the flag as a symbol of getting better, constantly changing for the better, because we're not there yet.
Absolutely not.
We're not there yet, especially when you just hear on the news a young Black man gets shot at 90 times by 30 police officers.
Was he shot at or shot 90 times?
He took, was it 60?
Wow.
He took 60, but it was 90 shots.
Wow.
By 30 police officers. So that, to me, and you think about the flag, and you think about the actual Emancipation Day, you think about Juneteenth, you think about the 4th of July. Though we've come a long way, we still got a long way to go. So the flag is a symbol of working to get better, but it's not true independence and freedom yet.
Fighting for a more perfect union.
Mm-hmm.
I would read a quote from the late Congressman John Lewis. He said, my greatest fear is that one day we may wake up and our democracy is gone. Now, isn't that something? What it's bad, but what if our democracy is gone? So we celebrate and we fly that flag, Meleika, as we talk about as a symbol. I see it as a symbol that if you are brave enough to fly that flag on your house, and if you see that flag and you believe in it, there's no way you should deny me, a Black man, all that this country has to offer. Because that's country, I don't see how you could fly it and don't think that I deserve it as an American citizen.
And women taking our rights away. Are you kidding me? That flag, we're in that flag too.
That's what I think.
But they've forgotten.
What you know, that recent situation with Roe versus Wade. I know you said we're in that. Let me read one more quote from Minnesota's Keith Ellison in 2016. He said, not voting is not a protest. It's a surrender. Woo, that is so powerful. Not voting is not a protest, it's a surrender.
I like that.
I like it a lot.
Who said that?
Keith Ellison from Minnesota. Isn't that beautiful?
I like that, a surrender. I like when you had said people who don't vote are not fighters, and I also like this one too. You're surrendering.
Yes.
Mark is in deep thought.
Wondering how many people forgot that they had an American flag and maybe are thinking that they have a Confederate flag out there.
That, you know, that's something to make you go, You know, the American flag is not the symbol of the Confederacy. It's a symbol for democracy for all Americans. And also a symbol that we are a melting pot and that we are a welcoming country. We are a country of immigrants.
Yeah, well, and as an immigrant, I'm forever grateful for that. I've been blessed to be here, and it's sort of, you know, and it's sort of weird. I mean, obviously, there's, I think it would be naive to not acknowledge that, you know, and there are plenty of people in the Black community who have issues with immigration because, you know, I come here and now as an immigrant, I'm, you know, live a life of greater privilege than some people who were born here. So I think in some ways it is.
Hold on. Don't just say that. I mean, what do you mean by you as a American immigrant? You said you believe that, you didn't say that by the color of your skin, but I'm saying that's what you're saying. You believe, and make the comparison. Are you talking about me? Are you thumbing your nose at me as a Black man, Mark?
No, I'm just acknowledging that I might be an immigrant, but I'm not going to get pulled over for it.
Interesting.
I'm not, you know, there is no driving while immigrant. And so in a way,
no driving while immigrant white.
Well, that's right. That's
there's a difference.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Because there are a lot of immigrant, and you know, at this time of migration all around the world, I think we have a lot of comparisons about immigration itself. I mean, you know, you recently saw white people from Europe who were fleeing a war get right into America within days of leaving their country, and you got people from Haiti who've been camped out in
Honduras
right. And so you're absolutely right. You know, it's unfortunately the more aware somebody is, the, shall I use the word, the more woke somebody is. And by the way, for me, that's a compliment. But the more somebody is aware of sort of the nuances of life, the less they're necessarily celebrating on the 4th of July.
You know, what about Ahmaud Arbery jogging in the neighborhood?
Mm.
You know, and a father and a son, I believe that they would say that they're patriots of this country, that they love this country. But jogging while black in this country, killed by 2 white men that would swear that they love America and all that it has to offer.
Were they waving the flag when they were chasing him down, or did my imagination just add that, that visual in there?
But you know, I thought I saw the flag on their car, but Mark makes a good point. Don't be stupid. If you're flying an American flag, it's not a Confederate flag. Tell your people, Mark. Tell them.
Yeah, there is a difference. They may have some of the same colors, but the Confederate flag, I think, is the victory of the Stars and Stripes over the Confederate flag is part of what is to be celebrated. Yeah, you know, I guess that's one way to view it without sort of viewing it as final, but as a work in progress. In my mind, the Stars and Stripes were a successor to the dead Confederate flag. It's a next step in the evolution of our country. But look, the reality is that, you know, that flag means so many things to so many different people. I will say this, though, you know, and it's also something that white people, I think, watch from the outside with very complicated feelings. But again, one of the things that the 4th of July usually means to me is that a lot of people in this city are going to get shot, and a majority of them are going to be Black people.
Yep.
So, you know, there are some folks who are still out there trying to finish the work that the Confederacy started.
Yes.
And it's very unfortunate. Look, you know, there are some people for whom the 4th of July means stay inside because it gets crazy out there. And that, to me, that's just so sad. It too sad to celebrate anything.
Yes, a lot of people are staying indoors because it's getting pretty bad. Well, not getting, it's been pretty bad. But the young man, what's his name, who shot up the people in Buffalo, New York?
Oh,
His reasoning was he had to protect the white race's freedom, protect the white race. So I just think, when he looks at the American flag, that's what sparked in his soul, was to kill us so that he could protect his race. So really, how free are we? And the gun violence, you know, we're all concerned about the gun violence happening in Chicago. And we know this weekend, it's already, we're already up to over 50 just from this weekend.
yeah. You know, and that's such a good point, that that crazy white teenager with the AR-15 in Buffalo actually thought he was standing up for the flag.
Well,
Right.
Since you guys want to talk about gun violence on Independence Day, let's go to a clip from Lyndon Johnson. And that was so long ago, during when John F. Kennedy was killed. But even then, the president of the United States was fighting for gun control so that people could live life and pursue happiness and not be gunned down in the streets. So I went to a 18-year-old girl's funeral that was killed in Oak Park at a gas station. It was so sad that she was killed by a gun and her life was cut down. The time that she was here was, in my opinion, too short. But, you know, we can't really celebrate true independence, whether you're white or black, brown, gay, straight, if we don't come together to do something about guns in our society. I'm not saying take away guns, but there's got to be a way that we can protect our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I know this isn't a show about gun control, but really, I think, and it's nothing that any of us haven't said before, so it's not anything new, but as soon as you have battalions of Black men getting armed to protect their own communities, guns will be outlawed again.
Well, you say this show is not about gun control, but it's about independence. It's about freedom. It's about children being able to play, children being able to jump double dutch, boys and girls being able to play basketball, baseball, and be happy. Just being able to walk in the park. That's what America is. This isn't an underdeveloped country. This isn't a communist society. This is a country that we all know that people fight to come to for the freedom that it affords us. So this show is about what we're going to do about gun control so that people could enjoy what this country offers.
Well, guns are just such a complicated tool, because some people would assert that guns are an instrument of freedom. Other people would assert that guns are an instrument of oppression. And what's funny to me in that context, you can oppress a community by introducing guns into that community, right? What did we just talk about earlier? We got a ton of Black people staying home today, not venturing outside because it's kind of dangerous because of guns. So you got a community that's essentially being oppressed and forced to, worry about their physical safety because of these weapons that some other people would assert protect their freedom. So just such a weird construct, it's such a pernicious thing. It's sort of like, some white people gave Black people guns and said, there you go do our job for us. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening in some of these communities. And these guns have, it's so hard for me to imagine how guns are sort of give some people a sense of comfort, a sense of safety. I don't think they realize what they're playing with.
Well, I mean, Meleika, if you got a gun, I need a gun, they say. And because that makes me feel safe, because if you got one, I need to have one. And I think some people say the only thing that could stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Or good gun laws.
I just wish we were a country that banned guns, period. Then we wouldn't have to worry about any of this.
Oh, Lord, Meleika, ban guns completely.
Ban guns completely. I mean, we're not in an age where you got to go and hunt for your food or you know what I mean? They're hunting for game now and hunting people. So I know that that's a dream because people aren't just going to turn over their guns, even if there was a law that said guns are banned in America. Well, what is it about a gun that makes you feel free? That makes you feel a sense of freedom? What is it? I mean, a sense of freedom. Freedom to me is having choices. Freedom is just being able to, you have the choice to go here, go there, buy this, buy that, go to this school, go live here. To me, those are freedoms. A gun, like, what is it about being able to shoot and kill someone that gives you a sense of freedom?
They say it protects my freedom from bad guys.
And who do you define as a bad guy?
Yes.
Is somebody who, because this is what it's come to. When I was younger, I was, road rage was not foreign to me. I was somebody who was certainly willing to give the finger to somebody who could cut me off in traffic, whether they even knew I existed or not, because I took it as a personal slight. Nowadays, you can't even do that anymore because, if I give you the finger in traffic, do I deserve to die?
Right.
Well, some people on the Eisenhower Expressway would say yes. To me, that's the thing about a gun. To me, is that a gun is a tool. When you use it, you can't take it back. You can never have that back, and it can be a very permanent solution to a very temporary problem. The problem is if you pull out a gun, you got to know how to use it, and you got to be ready to use it. And one of the things that's interesting to me is that most of the people who use guns to commit illegal crimes, it's not like they're taking shooting safety classes or gun safety classes. And so I think some of these folks, have their feelings hurt and pull out a gun and shoot these days. The other day I saw on the news that, now you got to think everybody's got a gun. So there was a good guy and a bad guy, and they shot each other. And by the way, tell me this, if there are two Black people shooting at each other, how do we know who the good person is and who's, but hang on a second. But if there's a white person and a Black person shooting at each other and the cops show up, what do you think the initial judgment will be on their part? Who's the good guy?
I know what I think, what I know. It's not what I think, it's what we know. It's history has shown us, and it's actually well documented. We talk about guns, denying people all that America has to offer. Let's talk about some other things like heroin being, flooded in Black communities. Now, of course, we say you got a choice whether you're going to take the heroin or not. Let's talk about some other things, heroin and opportunities for contracts and jobs. There's no doubt that the unemployment rate for Black people being high in America, it's not because Black people are lazy. It's about they might be being denied the right to jobs. Let's talk about the fact that more Black people are incarcerated for, let's say, a drug that is now legal, marijuana.
We really got to fix that.
In America, right?
Right. Where's the reparations on that specifically?
Oh, you brought up reparations on Independence Day. That was, did that just slip out, or, because I don't remember us talking about reparations is going to be a part of the discussion on Independence Day. Every time you get a chance to talk about reparations, Meleika, you just bring it in. This is a good time.
Yes, all those men who are incarcerated, all those men who have it on their record that they've served time for selling cannabis. There's got to be some reparation, because now it's legal. Now you have white men making tons of money doing it, pretty much doing the same thing. And you know, you have all these Black men, I mean, generations of Black men in the same family who have served time over selling cannabis. And they were experts on it. They're the experts on the different kinds, the different strands, but yet they served time and lost freedom. But you have white men now who've turned it into a legal business and they're making tons of money. It's just, it's so wrong. So when you think of the American flag, come on now. Come on now.
Well,
it's not right.
Yeah.
Here in Evanston, we have one dispensary, but I know that there have been, I know several who applied to get a dispensary, and one of them, he's Jamaican. All the men in his family had served time for selling cannabis, and it's a spiritual religious thing for them. So he knows all the ins and outs of marijuana, and they will not give him a license. They will not give him a dispensary. And he's one of those families that deserves it.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
Mark and I could talk a lot about dispensaries, but that is another thing that has been denied Black people in this country, and that's not what America is about. It's definitely not about shutting out people. It's about being inclusive. And bringing it back to that, let's go to how many Americans see, or I should say, the majority of America is plus one Black man that I happened to meet, Colin Powell, talk about Independence Day.
The Declaration of Independence, for me, is one of the best pieces of writing I've ever seen.
It's a revolutionary document for a revolutionary statement.
You cannot help but be stirred when you read those words.
Thomas Jefferson's writing is absolutely magnificent. And when he wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." That was the first time anybody had bothered to write that down.
And then you turn the clock back and think of when he was writing, how young he was, what a statement it was given the history of the world at that point. And you feel the excitement of being on the cusp of something so profound that it's hard to put it into words.
If you review our Declaration of Independence, it has those beautiful words about all men are created equal and governments are formed among men to represent the people. It was a good statement of what we were all about. And that's the only thing people remember about the Declaration of Independence, that it was about all men are created equal. But it's really roughly a 28 count indictment against King George. And therefore, because of the way in which the British Crown treated us, we now declare that we are a free country, and we want to let you know why. Now, if we're going to have a war, we're going to have a war.
In 1776, you have the Continental Congress meeting in Philadelphia, debating a unified position for the colonies with respect to the hostilities that have already broken out. And the fundamental issue between them is, are they fighting for their rights as Englishmen within the British Empire, or are they going to fight for independence? And they're seriously divided. People who are perfectly willing to resist the tyranny of the British government are not necessarily willing to strike for independence. But there's a groundswell in favor of it, I think, in large measure because they recognize that having provoked the lion this far, there's no going back.
All of a sudden, you have this group of people who are going, no, we're not part of some great chain of being with the king at the top of it. We are free people. We can vote for who we want to have in charge. And we're not going to tolerate you telling us that we have some class status we have to be trapped in. It says, you know, we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, meaning that Parliament in London, the King himself, the courts cannot interfere and take away your rights because the state can't take power from us. Even to this day, it's probably the most central difference between America and every other country in the world.
It goes well beyond what was needed in order to declare independence. It establishes a philosophical basis for a civil democracy in which all persons are guaranteed rights by virtue of their personhood.
This political genius, not just in Jefferson, but in Adams and all the other people who collected here, they saw a new time for humankind, which is that we can be free and that we can make decisions for ourselves.
Did anybody else watch that and think, holy cow, how far we've strayed from that? And I don't know, you know, what are we praising? I mean, we're praising a document that on the one hand was political genius and all that, and on the other hand said, yeah, but you got all these other people of different pigmentation who are less than human. They're 3/5 human or 3/5 person.
Are we celebrating that, Mark, or are we celebrating all the promise that America has? All right, Mark, I'm gonna ask you just point blank. Look at me. Should this Black man have hope in America? Should this Black man celebrate the Declaration of Independence? Or should I take the words of Frederick Douglass and say, this is not my holiday?
You know, maybe for the first time in our recording history together, I'm speechless. On the one hand, I want you to celebrate. I want you to acknowledge that this is a time when our country became better. But at the same time, it's hard to celebrate. It's hard to celebrate when you know tomorrow in the paper we're going to be reading the death toll from the weekend.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be.
Well, and that's the whole thing to me. Okay, is none of this stuff happens just because. You know, when I was younger and I couldn't really see the connections between things and sort of a system in place, it was easier to celebrate. But now I actually see connections and nothing, you know, the violence in the Black community, the abundance of guns in the Black community. Is that a coincidence? And we don't need to think about it when we think of the 4th of July? Or is that a direct outcome of the system created by the people that are celebrating today?
Let's go to the first Black president. We got a clip. Let's listen to President Obama the day after the 4th of July in 2013 and what it means to America from a Black president. Then we'll come back and close out.
Hi, everybody. I hope you all had a safe and happy 4th of July, filled with parades and cookouts, fireworks, and family reunions. We celebrated the White House with a few hundred members of the military and their families. And we took a moment amid the festivities to remember what our Independence Day is all about, what happened 237 years ago, and what it meant to the world. On July 4th, 1776, a small band of patriots declared that we were a people created equal, free to think and worship and live as we please. It was a declaration heard around the world that we were no longer colonists, we were Americans, and that our destiny would not be determined for us, it would be determined by us. It was a bold and tremendously brave thing to do. It was also nearly unthinkable. At the time, kings and princes and emperors ruled the world, but those patriots were certain that a better way was possible. And to achieve it, to win their freedom, they were willing to lay it all on the line. Their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor. They fought a revolution. Few would have bet on their side to win. But for the first of many times to come, America proved the doubters wrong. And now, 237 years later, the United States, this improbable nation, is the greatest in the world. A land of liberty and opportunity. A global defender of peace and freedom. A beacon of hope to people everywhere who cherish those ideals. Generations of Americans made our country what it is today. Farmers and teachers, engineers and laborers, entrepreneurs and elected leaders. People from all walks of life, from all parts of the world, all pulling in the same direction. And now we, the people, must make their task our own, to live up to the words of that Declaration of Independence and secure liberty and opportunity for our own children and for future generations. I want to say a special word of thanks to the men and women of our military who've played such a vital role in the story of our nation. You've defended us at home and abroad, and you've fought on our nation's behalf to make the world a better, safer place. People in scattered corners of the world are living in peace today, free to write their own futures because of you. We are grateful for your service and your sacrifice, especially those still serving in harm's way and your families here at home. So God bless you all. And may God bless the United States of America.
We were lucky to have him as President of the United States of America.
That's what I was just thinking. Man, I miss him. How far we have fallen since then.
Ooh, we have fallen. We have fallen. We have fallen. Are you watching the hearings? I mean, that alone, I'm just January 6th. Roe versus Wade, we have fallen. We have fallen.
And all of a sudden I'm just, even as a privileged white man, I feel a lot less secure in our democracy than I used to.
Well, let me to take the opportunity to follow in Obama's words and thank all of the men and women that serve this country to protect us from the enemy, and make us safer as a nation. But, Mark, you keep bringing up that we're going to turn on the news and we're going to open the paper and we're going to see on social media Black people being killed in Chicago.
Some brown people too, not a lot of white people.
Right. And so while we fight this war, or while we're fighting wars abroad and keeping our neighboring countries safe and protecting our borders so that we're safe, what about our very own communities right here in Chicago and in Illinois? I mean, I think that's a war that we got to fight.
I'm always, you've seen a few of these stories where you have Black men get out of the military and come back home, and that's where they get shot. And by the way, we should have a conversation at some point about the disproportionate number of Black people in the military.
Yes.
And what that means and why that is.
Yeah. And Meleika, what about Black people coming home from war, fighting for this country, ready to go to war, and they're treated like second-class citizens? It's not what America is about.
That is so sad. And a friend of mine, we were just talking last night, he's thinking about buying property in Mexico. And he was like, it's so easy for others from other countries to just come here and buy property. Like it's so easy. But for us to go to another country to buy property, you got to go through some serious red tape. So it's like they see us as this land of freedom and the streets are paved in gold. But then the reality of what's actually happening, we don't really want to deal with it.
Some streets
We don't
are
want to
paved
face
in
it.
some streets are paved in blood.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Mark, Meleika, another episode of Freedom Fighters. What would you say, Mark? Don't be stupid. Fight for your rights.
And enjoy the day, but think about what it truly means.
So we have to go back again, and I don't know if we could say enjoy the day as much because it's going to play after the day. So so where are we going to go?
I don't know. I think you can still say enjoy the day.
All right. All right. So
people will have to think about whether they enjoyed the day and how they did it.
All right.
I say, look at the 4th of July, Juneteenth, actual Emancipation Day, which is January 1st. Look at these days and really think about then and where we are now and things that are occurring now. I mean, women's rights, gun violence, choices for Black people, brown people. There's so much that's so real right now in our country, and a lot of people just don't want to face what they really mean. What they really mean. They just think, well, we're not back then. But in certain instances, we are. We are.
Let's hear even back then. Lyndon Johnson.
Today, I sent the following statement to the Speaker of the House and to the Vice President, the President of the Senate. Today, the nation cries out to the conscience of the Congress. Criminal violence from the muzzle of a gun has once again brought heartbreak to America. Surely, this must be clear beyond question. The hour has come for the Congress to enact a strong and effective gun control law governing the full range of lethal weapons. I have sought and I have fought for such a law through all the days of my presidency. On many occasions before, I have spoken of the terrible toll inflicted on our people by firearms. 750,000 Americans dead since the turn of the century. This is far more than have died at the hands of all of our enemies in all of the wars that we have fought. Sorrow and suffering that just cannot be counted, and fear that can never be measured. Each year in this country, guns are involved in more than 6,500 murders. This compares with 30 in England, 99 in Canada, 68 in West Germany, and 37 in Japan. When I last appealed to the Congress on this subject again, and that was only a month ago, I asked this question: what in the name of conscience will it take to pass a truly effective gun control law in the Congress? And now, in this new hour of tragedy, that question should at last be answered. So let us now spell out our grief in constructive action.
Wow.
So that 1968, that was Lyndon Johnson running the numbers down in 1968.
They need to be playing that over and over constantly to the House, to the Senate, to the NRA. That's the first time I heard that speech.